How's it going, everyone? It's Cave Lumity here, and today we are going to be talking about a game on the PlayStation 1. We are talking about Eminem's Shell Shock. Now, isn't actually probably what you would expect to be a good video game. However, you would actually be wrong if you think that. Eminem's Shell Shocked is a surprisingly good video game because it frankly is simply Crash Bandicoot with an Eminem's skin over it. This game plays so much like Crash Bandicoot, and honestly, I didn't realize that the PlayStation 1 had so many Crash Bandicoot clones until earlier this year. I saw someone make an entire list of just Crash Bandicoot clones, and this is one of them. And it's really good. If you like Crash Bandicoot games, you're probably going to enjoy this one. Is it as good as the original Crash games? Probably not, but it still is fun, and if you are used to the Crash Bandicoot platforming style where you're jumping around, you're doing spin attacks, you're breaking crates, you're doing spin attacks against enemies and stuff like that, and you have some really difficult platforming challenges. There's some levels in this game are very difficult, just like in Crash Bandicoot. The platforming in these types of games, in these Crash Bandicoot style games, usually is not easy, and especially towards the end of this game, this one will throw some doozies at you, and it can get pretty difficult. But that being said, for the most part, it's pretty well designed. It's a lot of fun. It runs pretty well. I didn't really have any issues with performance or anything. The way it looks graphically is actually not too bad. In fact, the cutscenes look really good on it, so that was very surprising. You can tell that there was some effort put into this. The actual areas and stuff like that, they look pretty good. You're basically playing in the M&M's factory, and you're doing platforming within the M&M's factory, and it's pretty cool. I like the different level designs. Each area definitely looks different from one another, but still has the setting still of this gigantic candy factory, so it's very bright and colorful everywhere you go. So that stuff is really good, and the colors really pop in this game, I will say. There is actually a storyline. I don't think storylines matter too much for 3D platformers, but if there's one that is done well enough, I always like to share it with you guys. And this one story is actually not too bad, considering all things. It's an M&M storyline. Basically, Yellow and Red, they left the factory in control by M&M's minis, and the minis are running amok, and it's your job to basically go complete a bunch of levels and collect M&M minis as you go throughout each level, and you collect them by breaking crates and things like that. And when you collect 100 minis, it will actually give you an extra life. This is one of those games that uses lives, so you can, eventually game over. However, this game has continues. Thank God. This game has continues, and also in the levels, there are checkpoints, which is great. I love that there's checkpoints in this game. That is so good. But yeah, I love this game. It's actually really fun, and if you are a fan of Crash Bandicoot, you're probably going to at least enjoy this. Even though it may seem gimmicky, I see people who don't like this just for the fact that it's M&M's and it's corporate because it's M&M's. But at the end of the day, I don't really care. If it's a fun game, it's a fun game, and this is a really good one. This is one that I think that everyone should at least try out, especially for the price, because this is usually something you can pick up for usually under $10. So I think that you should check this game out, honestly. Now, it's not sunshine and rainbows. There are some negatives to this game. I don't really like how some of the platforms are deceiving. Some things look like you can land on them, but then when you actually do hit them, they kill your character, and it's just like, really? That looks like something I could land on. And you'll quickly find out that while certain things may look like you can land on them, you unfortunately cannot. So that's a little bit aggravating. Also, the physics whenever you're on a moving platform, if you try to jump while you're on a moving platform, those physics are a little bit wonky. I was not a big fan of that. However, this is one of those games where I think the good vastly outweighs the negatives. The boss fights in this game, there are boss fights, and the boss fights are really good. They're really enjoyable. You have to kind of figure out how to defeat each boss. Each boss you have to defeat in a different way. For example, the very final boss, you have to jump around on these platforms, and when you jump on them, electricity will basically go to the platform that you're on, but there's a delay to it. So you jump on it, then you have to jump to another platform before the electricity gets your M&M. And then, once you get to another platform, you actually have to jump on a moving one, go all the way to the other side, and you have to hit one of these 3 electricity buttons, and basically if the enemy is in front, the boss, if it's in front of one of these platforms, it will get electrocuted, and then you have to repeat the process all over again. And it's really fun, and like I said, there's just a lot of weird kind of ideas that they have for boss fights, and I enjoyed pretty much all of the boss fights. I actually think that every single one of them was pretty well designed. Didn't have any problems with those. There's not just platforming levels either. There actually is some driving levels. In fact, this game starts off on a driving level. You drive your car to the M&M's factory, and you have to avoid a bunch of hazards on the way. And I actually think the driving levels are probably my favorite part of this game. I really enjoyed those ones. You're just driving through, trying to avoid other cars, trying to avoid crashes that are happening on the road. You're trying to collect crates as you're doing it. You're hitting ramps and stuff. And it's actually really cool. It's a lot of fun, too. And there's later missions, too, where you're driving different types of vehicles. Like there's one where you're trying to drive fork trucks, because eventually Green shows up to the factory, the green M&M, and she's like, I gotta see how you do on the fork truck. There's even at one point a flying level, and I will say the flying level actually was not very good. But I was a little bit confused by it, because I think it may have been a bonus level, because I eventually ran out of lives on it. Instead of just like ending and like, you know, doing what it usually does, where it gives you like the continue screen and then you restart from the beginning of the level if you have to use a continue. Instead, it just passed me to the next level, so I think that was just a bonus stage. But it's cool that they attempted it. I'll give them credit for at least trying. But overall, this is, I think, a really cool, underrated game if you have a PlayStation 1 and you're looking for a fun Crash Bandicoot-style 3D platformer. It's really cool. It's interesting how, you know, it really is just a reskin of Crash Bandicoot, but it works really well. Frankly, it works for this whole story that they were going with M&M's. And everything flows pretty well together, and the cutscenes are very well made. The voice acting's even very good and everything. So, I highly recommend this game. If you can find this game for, you know, a decent price, I'd say if you can find it for under $20, try it out. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it, especially because I actually got a decent amount of time out of this game too. I probably spent 6 hours at least trying to beat this game. And granted, I'm not great at video games, so that probably helps a little bit, add some extra time. But, you know, still, I mean, 6 hours on a 3D platforming game, that's not too bad. So, go check out M&M's Shell Shocked on the PlayStation 1. I think it's definitely worth your time. And it's usually not too expensive either. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe button down below. I try to put a new video out every Friday. And if there's other videos during the week, that's just extra for you guys. I'll talk to you next time. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.